So at the beginning of this week's Torah Portion, Va-etchanan, Moshe, recounts how he pleaded and begged God to rescind the decree and to allow Moshe to enter the promised land, to enter Israel. He cajoled and he tried everything, every possible argument. He said to God, I don't even need to be the leader. I'll just be a regular person. Just let me enter the land to do all of the commandments that can only be done there. And God said, stop. Cut it out. No more arguments. You can't go in. But here's what you should do. Go up on top of the mountain and gaze at the land. Look in all four directions. Look at the land, but you can't go in. Imagine you have a little kid. Kid's eating 2 donuts. And the kid says, Mom, I want another donut. And his mother says, you had 2 donuts already. You can't have another one. So the kid says, I want another donut. His mother says, no. He says, I want another donut. And he's screaming at this point. His mother says, no. That we'd understand. He had 2 donuts. He can't have a third. But imagine his mother's having a really bad day. And she says, I told you no. You see this? Look at it. You can look at it, but you can't have it. So she's holding the donut up in front of him, taunting him, torturing him. You know, that wouldn't be the best style of parenting. So what's God doing? Moshe keeps begging. God says no. He's not going to change his mind. So why doesn't God just say, stop? The answer's no. I'm not going to change my mind. Why does God say, the answer's no, but go look at it. You can't go there. You can't enter the land, but you can look at it. Why torture Moshe? Why put him in that situation where he's going to be taunted? So maybe this is what's going on. We believe in a concept of Maisa Avos Siman Labanim. The deeds of our forefathers have resonance for us, their children. So for example, Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son Isaac gives us the ability to sacrifice so much for God and for Torah and for Judaism. Joseph's resisting temptation. Every day his master's wife would try to seduce him, but he withstood it. Gives us the ability to stand tall in the face of temptation. So maybe what's going on now is that God's setting up a scenario where Moshe's standing on top of the mountain. He's gazing into the land, yearning, like no one before or since, dying to go into that land, but he can't. And that desire, that yearning, gets imprinted onto the psyche of every Jew since then. So all of us were yearning to go there, to connect to the land of Israel. Go ask a birthright participant. Ask a young man or woman who's gone to Israel for the first time and now they've returned. What was it like? What was it like to stand at the Western Wall, at the Kotel, for the first time? And they'll tell you time and again, I can't even describe it. I've never felt anything like it before in my life. We all have that connection. No matter how unconnected from Judaism we may be, there's still some connection to the land of Israel. Some story comes on the radio, there's a story on the internet, or in the newspaper, or in a magazine. Wait, what was that? What was that story about Israel? And lately, if we've been paying attention, because there are always stories about Israel, because of the world's seeming fascination or preoccupation with Israel, we've seen a couple stories about Israel and the Olympics, which are going on now. One got a lot of press, one didn't, but should have. The one that got quite a bit of press was this. The Israeli government, reasonably, asked the International Olympic Committee to observe a moment of silence for the Israeli athletes who were butchered by Palestinian terrorists in the 1972 Olympics. And the International Olympic Committee, shockingly, obscenely, said no. No moment of silence for the Israeli athletes. That got quite a bit of press. What didn't was this. Shimon Peres is the president of Israel. He's not an observant Jew, and he was scheduled to attend the opening festivities this past Friday. But he realized that these ceremonies would continue into the Sabbath, and there was no hotel within walking distance of the opening dinner. So he asked the International Olympic Committee if he could sleep in the Olympic Village so that he would not have to publicly desecrate the Sabbath, because he doesn't like to do that while working in an official capacity as the president of Israel. The International Olympic Committee, not surprisingly, said no. Now, it's one thing if when I get an invite to a dinner or a conference or a meeting on the Sabbath or on a Jewish holiday and I say, no, I can't do it, it's a Sabbath or holiday, people understand that. I have a beanie on my head, I'm Harry the Jew, they're not surprised. But Shimon Peres, who's not observant, canceled his trip because he said, I am not going to publicly desecrate the Sabbath. For him to take a stand on behalf of Shabbat, that's a massive sanctification of God's name. So let's follow Moshe's lead. Let's stay tuned in. Let's keep yearning for that connection to the land of Israel.